Hey guys, welcome back to MassiveSynth.com tutorials. This is part 3 of the feature we've been doing this month, looking at creating analog type sounds in Massive and taking a lot of inspiration from the boards of Canada kind of sound really. And in the first tutorial, part 1, we made this sound in Massive, a kind of multi-stepper using a couple of different steppers on different oscillators to create sort of 2 riffs really, and then some filter cutoff modulation here as well, using performer and stuff to give the sound that kind of envelope. And in this tutorial we're going to look at how we can process this sound, so taking it away from Massive and looking at a couple of plugins that we can use to just maybe help with that kind of analog sort of flavour on the sound really. So we've got this sound created here, we can maybe just create a loop there, and one of the first things I was going to do actually was with the Massive patch here, take this reverb off. I do love the Massive reverb, but it does sound very digital and quite trashy and stuff, so I'm going to add our own kind of reverb in really, so I'm going to turn that off for now. Close Massive, and the first thing it's going to look at is maybe some compression, and obviously there's like thousands of compressors to look at using compressing synth sounds and stuff, but there's a couple of quite cool ones just for giving your sound a bit of an analog feel, and I downloaded a demo from PSP's website, this oldTimer. So I've only got the demo at the moment, but I just thought you guys, if you wanted to watch this tutorial, you could download the same demo. It's a really nice compressor actually, really useful. It's quite a subtle sort of compressor, it's not really kind of very harsh at all, so it's perfect for this kind of sound really. We don't want to smash it or anything, we just want to kind of tie in some of those dynamics a little bit and just firm the sound up. So what we've got here in the middle is just how much gain reduction is being applied to the sound, the ratio for the compressor, the time. So I'm assuming this is just maybe even attack and release tied together, or might just be the attack. The release might be automatic on this compressor. The amount of compression, and then the makeup gain or the output here. So if we bypass it, we can see signals hitting about -12 on that level really. So to kind of A and B compression sounds, I always try and match the output to sort of what's going in there. So first off, I guess maybe about a medium time, so we don't want too kind of fast attack to sort of, there's not really many transients in the sound anyway, but we just want the compression to be quite smooth really, quite subtle. So keeping the time around halfway, maybe push the ratio up to about 6, getting a bit more extreme gain reduction there, pull this compression down a little bit. And then just maybe boost some of this output up, so bypass this. So yeah, I think this compressor is a really nice compressor, but it is quite well known for being subtle compressor, so maybe just use it to kind of just firm up a sound. It just gives it kind of that old school feel really. You can go more extreme, but even with like 12 dB of gain reduction on the sound, it's not destroying it, it still sounds alright, You can go really harsh with this compressor and get some extreme gain reduction going on, and you're not going to destroy the sound or just start distorting or anything, which is pretty cool. You know, it's a really nice smooth compressor. I think I'll probably buy it at some point. So there's also a number of presets that you can look at down here, you know, for different things. Kick fattener, which is pretty cool. Make it pump. So various different presets to use from, but there's only a couple of dials in there anyway, so I just, you know, kind of set it manually really. Okay, so that's first compressor set up. The next thing we could look at here is adding some reverb back in. So I wanted to insert the reverb after the compressor, so we're compressing the sound and then adding reverb. I mean, otherwise, if we did it the other way around, we'd be compressing the reverb and bringing it out more, which is, you know, maybe something you want to do. But I was thinking for this sound, you know, I don't want to kind of start compressing that reverb tail on the sound. Just wanted to compress the sound and then add the reverb afterwards. Might sound a little bit more natural. And I downloaded another demo for this tutorial by Valhalla called the Valhalla Vintage Verb, which is really nice. I mean, some of the presets in here alone are pretty awesome. This one here, gated chorus verb. It takes the sound in a completely different direction, but I mean, it's just, you know, if you wanted to get kind of quite experimental with some of your synths, just running it through some of these presets. Some awesome kind of presets in here really. And I think this reverb unit is modelled on a number of kind of classic lexicon units, so it's got that kind of nice vintage old school sound. I really liked some of the Hall settings, so this 300 medium Hall, which is pretty nice. And then what we've got next to that is the colour, so you can set the colour. So now it's now 1980s or 1970s, and I think if you go, as you go back, you get more of a kind of reduction in the kind of high frequencies, so you get more of a sort of I suppose a less bright kind of defined sound. You know, the now has got kind of more sort of pristine kind of mids and tops, whereas 1980s and 1970s is just, you know, more kind of degraded, I guess. So 1980s sounds pretty cool. And we've got this mix slider here, set how much reverb. So I want it a bit, it's quite extreme at the moment, make it a bit more subtle. Take some of that pre-delay off, or up, sorry, so it's not kind of interfering with the sound, so we're kind of getting the clean sound. And then, you know, basically this means that it's going to take a couple of milliseconds before the reverb actually kicks in, so it's not going to kind of phase with the sound so much. So just take that pre-delay off a little bit, back it up to around 4.23. Maybe push this decay up a bit now. So you're getting quite a nice, it's quite a long tail, but it's a really nice smooth tail, and I find it hard with reverbs for them to not sound, a lot of reverbs sound tinny and stuff, but this just sounds really smooth and just kind of really complementary to the sort of the sound you're using it with. So really nice. And then we've got some damp in here, so we can control some of the sort of frequency content of the reverb, so we can just roll off some of the bass in the reverb. It's pretty much rolled off already there, the preset that we loaded up. High frequency as well, we can sort of, this boosts the high shelf. So getting more kind of high frequency content in there now. Maybe turn that down. We don't want it too bright. If you're going for that analog sound, you don't want too many kind of harsh high frequencies, or, you know, it's sort of, you just want a kind of nice warm sound. So got got the size here as well, the shape, diffusion. Got some modulation, so we could add some chorus to the reverb. I wasn't really going to get involved in any of that, but push that high cut up a little bit. Just roll off. So this is EQ, this is for final kind of like frequency sort of adjustment on the sound, which is pretty cool again. So roll off more of that bottom end. And bypassed. So yeah, I mean, it's another unit I'm probably going to buy at some point. It's only like $50 or something. Just a really nice kind of reverb, really, just giving that nice kind of old school sort of sound, which is really cool. So yeah, download the demo, have a play with some of the presets, see what you think, but I think it's really cool. So next up in the chain, we could maybe add some EQ, just to maybe roll off some of the bottom end, and also just kind of just maybe give a little bit more sort of, I don't know, punch in the sort of the kind of mids and higher mids. So go for this eaReckon EQ, and this was another free unit, actually free with computer music. So, and this has got a really cool feature. If you hit tips button there, you can get tips. If I load up a kick drum, and it's just giving me some free, you know, just some rough guidelines of how you can sort of EQ your sounds, really. So, you know, for a kick drum, adding bottom end in 50 to 100 hertz, and, you know, some roundness a bit higher, and then the muddiness, you know, the boxiness in kicks. You always want to get rid of the mids and stuff. So yeah, it's really nice. So if we went, I don't know, the closest thing maybe is strings to the sound that we've got going on here, and it's telling us, you know, it's not like a hard and fast rules of how to EQ your sounds. It's just some suggestions for the kind of frequency ranges you want to be looking at. So maybe we just want to roll some of this low end off the sound. And maybe in this area, this 1K to 5K, just add a little bit of tops. Let's start playing it with a drum beat, actually. So we can select our frequency range here. So we want to go for about 2K, and then just we can boost in here, and you can see the boost happening there. Obviously, you don't want to go too extreme. And you've got the CM-EQUA resonance here as well, so we can set how wide or how thin the band we're affecting in the EQ, you know. So yeah, just adding a bit of mids there, and maybe just some brightness, you know, just some higher kind of frequencies around 10K. But especially be subtle around this area, we don't want to go too extreme. I always, when I'm EQing like really high frequencies, I always turn the volume really low, so you can hear those frequencies a lot more. When you're sort of monitoring stuff really loud, you tend to lose sight of the really high kind of frequencies a little bit, and everything just starts to sound, I don't know, a little bit full on. Tend to mix kind of sub and bass and kick drums really loud, but when you're mixing like hi-hats and or adding a sort of EQ in this sort of 10K area, I tend to do it with really low volume. So yeah, we're just adding a bit of mids and kind of tops in the sound, really. Again, very subtle, but you know, it's just benefiting the sound, just helping it kind of come through and shine a little bit more. And yeah, using a nice EQ is going to be it's just going to add some nice harmonics to the sound really. So yeah, and this is a really nice EQ to look at, and it's free with computer music, so you can go and check it out. Okay, so one other thing you could do is maybe add that first compressor and add another compressor after all of this has been added. So go for this PSP again, and just adding 2 subtle compressors, all these kind of plugins in between. I mean, you could add some distortion if you wanted and stuff, but again, be even more subtle with this compression really. So take the ratio down a bit, compression down. Let's just A/B it as well. So what we get about -9.5 there on the level meter. So that up and down. Even slower on the time really. So yeah, just another compressor. It's just rounding the sound off a little bit. I mean, it's 1 or 2 dB of gain reduction, so it's very subtle, but it's just helping kind of bring these effects together a little bit more. Like, we don't want to add too much compression, especially because we're placing it after that reverb, but it's helping the sound gel a little bit more. So another thing actually, because the sound, I'm pointing out now, the sound we set up with the oscillators, we've not got this restart via gate, because we wanted to keep that nice warm sort of analog feel where the oscillators aren't, the phases aren't re-triggering. So what that leads to is a very kind of inconsistent level on the sound. So one way of bypassing that problem would be to bounce your kind of synth, once you're happy with how it's sounding, maybe bounce a couple of bars of it down to audio, so then you've got, and then choose the best kind of like 2-bar loop or whatever, and then just loop that, so you've got that. It's kind of like a consistency, but you've still got that analog feel with the oscillator sort of phases not re-triggering, and you've got that nice warm sound still as audio. So yeah, there's another tip. And one final thing I was going to show you actually was to kind of like just sort of rough up your drums a little bit more. So this is just a basic break from I think it's an Apple loop, basically, just a simple kind of loop, and it's D16 Decimort plugin, which I actually bought this, but because it was just so nice for drums. But I think it's modelled on some of the Akai samplers, so it's giving that kind of old crunchy feel. So it's maybe more of a hip hop type thing, but just crunches drums so much. But one of the cool things you've got on here is you've got this dry wet feature, so you can almost use it like a sort of parallel kind of bit crusher, really, kind of bit crusher distortion unit. So great like sort of effect just to kind of crunch drums and stuff. So something like that, just pull the dry wet down. Maybe push this frequency up a bit more. And we've got this bit reducer here. If you want to play with that. You've also got a filter section, so it's off at the moment, but I could do like a low pass on this sound. Increase the resonance. So yeah, it's just a really nice plugin. It's got a really nice sound, but just loading up some of those kind of presets and maybe just pushing this frequency up so it's not too low, so you're getting still a nice bit of clarity, and just play with the dry wet, so something like that, A-B it. So it's taking some of those kind of really high frequencies off, but it's just making it sound quite nice, quite old school and warm and stuff. So yeah, another great plugin. I think you can get the demo of that, download the demo of that Decimort and have a look at that as well. So yeah, there's some tips for these types of sounds really. So yeah, in part 2 of this series, we created another sort of similar kind of multi sort of drifting chord type sound in massive. So for the next part of this series, part 4, I was going to show you how to do some more kind of analog style processing using a couple of different plugins and different tips and stuff. So yeah, make sure you come check us out for that one. So yeah, thanks for watching this tutorial. Hope you found it useful. Any questions, then just get in touch, and hope to see you for part 4. Cheers, bye.